Next up, we've got Brendan James. He's in the job for about 10 days now. He tells me from MacPhersons Resources. Brendan has a diverse career spanning senior operational and technical management, investment banking and funds management. He's a metallurgical engineer, has operational roles with Straits, the CSA Mining Cobar, Olympic Dam, and he headed Western Mining's copper gold uranium technical groups from Melbourne before moving to Rio Tinto to lead its OTX Global Hydrometallurgy Group. Mr. James was a senior mining analyst for Deutsche Bank, a partner of Perennial Growth Funds Management. He was MD and CEO of Australian-listed uranium mining company in Spain before moving into the CEO role of a privately owned Australian copper mining company in 2012. Mr. James has previously held a number of non-executive director roles, including the Queensland Resource Council and Syndicated Metals, and he's got a pretty interesting story here at MacPhersons.
Thanks very much, James, and good morning, everybody. As James said, my name is Brendan James, and I'm the CEO of MacPhersons Resources. Now, today I'm going to do things a little bit differently to how I'd normally present, where I'd go through the projects in detail and look at the capital costs, the earnings, and the outlook. And I'm going to do this for a reason, and that's, as James said, I've come into the role all of about 10 days ago. So, therefore, for the last few weeks, I've had the chance to look at the company with a fresh set of eyes, and I recognise that you only ever get a chance to do that once. And so today, instead of going through the normal process, what I wanted to share with you is what I see initially from an outsider looking in. Now, I started working with MacPhersons a couple of months ago, coming in as an independent consultant, doing a peer review of both the company and the projects for the board and for Morrie Goods. Now, MacPhersons was and is still going through the challenging transition from being an exploration company with a primary focus on resource growth and discovery to becoming an operating mining company with a focus on project development, production and profitability. Now, with this view, and it's one that I should say that I share, that moving into production is the greatest way to maximise shareholder returns, the board and Morrie recently asked if I'd step into the CEO role to guide the company into production. So I had to think about it. Did I really want to take on the CEO role this time? My business was going well. Did I really think that an investment of my time and energy into MacPhersons Resources would pay off? Well, I'm here, so the answer is obviously yes, and I hope this brief presentation we'll run through now that provides a snippet of what MacPhersons is and the people behind MacPhersons and the opportunities in front of us provides an answer of why that I decided to come in and join MacPhersons and lead the company into production. Now, one of the things that drew me to MacPhersons was the gap between its current market cap and its potential. The company currently has a market cap of around $29 million with $3 million in the bank. Now, I like that the company had a very solid board, chaired by Ashok, which I've seen that and noted that everyone here knows very well, and is supported by Jeff Williams and Peter Rosenhaus. Now, Peter, of course, brings the backing and support of Orion, which I've worked with in the past. Now, our projects are 100% owned by us, and our top 20 shareholders own some 65% of the company. So putting this all together, what I saw was that we had growth potential, a solid shareholder base, and a strong board capable of making decisions. Now, as far as the job of taking a resource company through to production goes, you can't get a lot better location than where we sit just outside of Cal. We have over 600,000 ounces of gold in resource, over 100,000 tonnes of zinc, and just over 20 million ounces of silver. Now, being outside of Kalgoorlie, we also have direct access to world-class local mining professionals, operators and contractors. This means we have no requirement for FIFO, and that reduces both project capital costs and also operating costs going forward. And we have infrastructure. In considering developing projects, one of the major capital killers is infrastructure, and it's right on our doorstep. We have significant processing and administration infrastructure already located on the Barara Nimbus site, and extensive regional infrastructure in roads, rail, power and gas. Now, when I came in, I wanted to have a look at what Morrie and the team had achieved over the past 12 months, and they've done a very good job. They've had 0 LTIs, which is excellent, but the challenge for our team now is to maintain that safety record through project development and production. They achieved a 47% increase in the Barara resource from only shallow drilling. Now, I've got to point out the majority of the holes in Barara are less than 100 metres in depth, and there's nothing greater than 183 metres at present, and even that hole ends in mineralisation. And you'll see in a minute when you see the pit boundary, the bottom of the pit boundary is basically the bottom of drilling. There was a threefold increase in Barara reserves, with proven reserves making up 81% of the resource base. And added to this, the team increased silver, zinc and gold resources at Nimbus by around 60%. Permitting processes were advanced at the Barara project, and the very successful Prospectors Tribute arrangement defined areas with coarse angular gold directly to the northwest of the Barara resource. So moving into the first of our three major projects. We start with what is the priority of the business going forward, and that is Barara. And that's been a change from where the business has been in the past, but Barara will be the number one focus of this business over the next couple of years. Now, Barara is located directly next to Nimbus and a stone's throw away from the super pit. It has considerable resources and reserves and significant existing site infrastructure to initiate the mining of the resource. The Barara resource today is over 10 million tonnes of ore at around 1 gram per tonne for 341,000 ounces, and importantly 74% of this gold is now in the measured and indicated category, being over 250,000 ounces. On reserves, we have over 138,000 ounces in provable and probable status based on the 4.3 million tonne ore pit option. Now, from the Barara pit model, you can see that the current 4.3 million tonne option is based on the mining of these three coloured pits. However, when we've sat down and reviewed it over the peer review, we can see that the ore body is conducive to bulk mining, which is what we'll look at going forward, and we'll likely mine a larger pit option, which potentially takes mining up to around 8.2 million tonnes at still around 1 gram per tonne for around 270,000 ounces of gold. Now, while we're transitioning from resource development to project development, we're obviously not turning our back on what we believe is a very exciting resource development potential right in front of us. The current resource is only limited at the moment by drilling. It's not closed off to the bottom, and you can see this is the deepest drill hole that we've got to date, which finishes in mineralisation, and it's not closed off to the north. Now, this doesn't mean that we slow down the development of our operations, but it does mean that this deposit could and should get larger in the future. What I and the team are genuinely excited about is the opportunity to extend the project to the north, particularly around the areas of Dawn and Beehive. This is the areas on direct line of strike coming out of the Barara deposit. So look, I encourage everyone, if you've not already done so, please take a visit to the MacPhersons booth. You'll meet Andrew, Maury, Paul and Lydia there, and have a look at the gold samples that we've picked up on the northern extensions. Now, these areas to the north remain undrilled tested. They certainly will be tested over the next 12 months. Now, Barara should not be considered in isolation. MacPherson also has the Kalgoorlie resource made up of the MacPhersons deposit and the Tycho deposits on the southern side of town. The Kalgoorlie resource adds another 200,000 ounces to the project from 3.8 million tonnes of ore at 1.64 grams per tonne. Again, the deposit's outcrop, with the region exhibiting excellent exploration potential. Now, if you go out and talk to the booth and meet Andrew, he'll tell you that it's our opinion that MacPhersons Resources has considerable potential to be expanded to the north with further drilling. And look, finally, I'll touch briefly on the Nimbus deposit. Now, it's fair to say that Nimbus has been the focus of the past 12 months, and while the project will continue to be a focus moving forward, it'll now be considered as part of the greater Barara project instead of a standalone operation. Now, this change in mindset will reduce life of mine costs for both the Barara and the Nimbus projects. The Nimbus mineralisation, which I think sure you've seen before with Maury's presentations, is a VHMS style of deposit with 20 million ounces of silver in resource, 77,000 ounces of gold and 104 700,000 tonnes of zinc. Now, the mineralogy is complex, and one of the focuses over the next few months will be to modify the proposed flow sheet to increase project returns on $1 per tonne processed. Now, we're confident this will be achieved, and that work's already underway. Looking at the project, it consists of 2 individual pit cutbacks. You can see the pit cutbacks are around the original west and east pits. These will be mined in parallel and producing some 700,000 tonnes of ore. This will be followed by an underground development producing another 740,000 tonnes of ore. It can be seen from the current resource statement, reserve statement, this brings in about 1.4 million tonnes at around 3% zinc and around 178 grams per tonne of silver. So in conclusion, whilst the deposit and resource growth continues in MacPhersons, and recognising that the team under Maury have already done the work to convert a significant proportion of the resources to the reserve status, the primary focus of the company now is to initiate mining within the near term, utilising our existing infrastructure where possible to minimise capital expenditure and shareholder dilution. And of course we do this in order to maximise shareholder value and returns. So I get back to the question I faced a couple of weeks ago. Should I take on the MacPhersons CEO role? Well, we have the resources and importantly the reserves to initiate production. We have significant owned infrastructure supported by extensive regional infrastructure. And we have considerable in-house and local expertise and near-term exploration potential. And importantly for my role, we have a knowledgeable board and shareholder backing to progress to being a successful Australian mining company. As it turned out, the answer was an easy one. Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. Do we have any questions for Brendan? Thanks, Brendan.